Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a brand new shadow Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Shadow Diggersby. Diggersby is a normal and ground type Pokemon with the moveset of Quick Attack, Fire Punch, and Scorching Sands. I was lucky enough to find the Best Buddy rank 14 Shadow Diggersby, so of course I had to power it all the way up to level 49.5. I will be working on Best Buddying it as well, because with Best Buddy at level 50.5, it gets to 1498. Now, I'm going to be testing it out in some Great League practice battles to see how it performs. Hopping to the first match, leading Malamar into Shadow Quagsire. Farming up with the Malamar, firing off the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to inflict some serious damage if it lands, and it does my opponent with the no shield. They're farming up a ton with the Quagsire. I can survive any one move, so I am going to let this through. It is going to be the Aqua Tail. I'm able to get to another Foul Play as my opponent continues to overfarm, and this Foul Play will grab a shield. They're going to pivot out into Drifblim. Drifblim looking for a farm down, but Malamar will not be denied, making the Foul Play and grabbing the shield. It is going to be the Shadow Drifblim as well, and now I send in Toxapex. Shadow Diggersby not a big fan of going up against Drifblim, as of course Drifblim can hit for super effective damage with Icy Wind. Here the opponent is going to go for an Icy Wind bait, which I do no shield. I'm expecting they're going to do 3 in the move, so I farm up, switch into the Shadow Diggersby. Please tell me it's the Shadow Ball catch, and it is. You absolutely love to see it. My opponent will make the Icy Wind, but I still have 2 shields to hide behind. So I'm going to shield up Shadow Diggersby. Opponent switches into the Quagsire. I know that I can tank 1 move, so I am going to let this go. Shadow Diggersby takes substantial damage from the Aqua Tail. I'm committing to the farm down. I want energy on the Diggersby. I am debuffed, but I will be able to switch out and reset the debuff soon if need be. What is that final Pokemon in the back? It's going to be a Drapion, and I am debuffed, but this is a Shadow Diggersby, so even debuffed Scorching Sands absolutely rocks the Drapion. I get to the Fire Punch, that's going to KO. In comes the Drifblim, and Drifblim is going to get quick attacked down by a Shadow Diggersby, and that's a good game. We move to match number 2, Malamar versus Gastrodon. Gastrodon, of course, would be an absolute nightmare for Toxapex to deal with, so I'm very happy to catch it on the lead. Foul Play is going to connect, some very nice damage on the Gastrodon. They have enough for the Earth Power. I decided the last second to respect it, and I'm very happy that I did. Farming back up with the Malamar, throwing before they can make it to a Body Slam. A Body Slam would not KO, but I want to keep my Malamar healthy. So down goes Gastrodon. Opponent now going to bring in their own Diggersby. So winning switch advantage, very, very important, as now I can put my Diggersby on theirs. Superpower is going to be shielded, farming up with the Malamar, and that's a perfect overfarm by my opponent, firing off the Fire Punch right before I get the next Superpower. And now, we're going to have the Battle of Diggersby. Theirs, of course, being the regular and mine being the Shadow. It looked like I did get the 1-turn bring in there, which is unfortunate. Scorching Sands is going to connect, and I am going to be over-farming quite a bit and firing off another Scorching Sands. This will be getting my opponent pretty low. They are now approaching red HP. Honestly, I don't know if a Fire Punch plus a few quick attacks would KO from this health range, as this is my first time playing Shadow Diggersby. I think it would have. I go for a Scorching Sands just in case, and they catch it on a Drifblim. That is devastating. What a beautiful catch by my opponent. I'm going to look for some chip damage with a Shadow Fire Punch. Fire Punch is going to do some pretty solid damage onto the Drifblim, and now that the Drifblim is in brine range, I can bring in Toxapex. My opponent does have energy on the Diggersby, but the important thing is that they do not have a move loaded. My opponent will be able to fire off Shadow Balls, but since I did get the Scorching Sands debuff, they're not going to be doing a ton of damage. So I am going to grab the final shield, and now I just need to massively overfarm, and the moment that Diggersby hits the field, I need to go for the Brine. There it is, and Brine will immediately be reached. Brine is going to be able to pick up the knockout onto the Diggersby. Back in comes the Drifblim. Drifblim is going to be forced to throw. I can switch into the Diggersby, snipe down with a fast move, and take the win. Bad lead in the next match, leading into Shadow Jumpluff, so I'm going to safe switch into Shadow Diggersby. I know that Shadow Diggersby does actually just win the 2-shield versus regular Jumpluff. I did not look up the Shadow Jumpluff matchup, but look at that Fire Punch damage. Oh my goodness. I know that an energy ball here will do about 2/3 of my total HP, so it is something that is survivable, but I think that health on Diggersby could be very valuable. Diggersby is going to fire off more fire punches. Opponent is going to look for the overfarm. I think I'll actually play 2s and then try and get a catch out of here, because they're not switching out, which tells me I think Diggersby will have value in the back. Fire Punch, shielded. I'm going to look to farm up quite a bit of energy to switch into the Toxapex as they fire off the Energy Ball. That is a massive catch. Energy Ball, not going to do a ton of damage. Out comes Shadow Steelix. And suddenly, I am very, very happy that I decided to save the Shadow Diggersby. Psychic Fangs and Breaking Swipe, neither one's going to be doing a ton of damage in that matchup. Here, unfortunately, it looks like my opponent will actually live 2 brines and get a full farm down. It's super effective damage, but brine is a terrible move. I send in the Diggersby. I can tank multiple Psychic Fangs, I'm not worried. But that's not a Psychic Fang, that's an Earthquake. That inflicts actually very significant damage. They're going to follow it up with the Psychic Fangs. I survive on 1 HP, avoid the snipe attempt, and now it's Malamar versus Unova Stunfisk. I think this is going to be a losing endgame for me, just because my Diggersby is too low. I took a gamble that they wouldn't have Earthquake, and unfortunately, it did not pay off. If I had brought the Malamar into the Steelix to absorb the energy, I would just be in a winning position right now, because my Diggersby would just be able to sweep. But now, unfortunately, I think I'm probably losing this. I overfarm as much as I can, going for the superpower to try and keep as much residual energy as possible. They bring in the Jump Bluff, I combo with this Fire Punch, it will be able to pick up the knockout. Can I survive any Thunder Fangs on the Malamar and get to the superpower? The answer is no. And man, I was not expecting that Earthquake, and it ended up costing me. Great lead in the next match, leading Malamar into Annihilate. Opponent save switches into Drapion. It's actually the regular Drapion, which did throw me off for a little bit there. I should have just superpowered instantly, and then I could have brought in the Shadow Diggersby. One downside to Shadow Diggersby, there are matchups that it does pick up, but one new matchup that it loses is it loses the Shadow Drapion 2 shield, just because the Aqua Tails do enough that eventually you do get Poison Stung down. To avoid playing the 2 shield scenario, I just stayed in with the Malamar, superpowered, and now I'm in a great spot because these quick attacks are absolutely eating Drapion alive. They get fully farmed down, in comes Annihilate, and a normal Diggersby, 2 Scorching Sands, Annihilate can survive. But look at this, Shadow Diggersby can cleanly 2-shot Annihilate from full health. Annihilate forced to give up a shield as that energy is extremely valuable. In comes the Malamar. Malamar is going to be shielding up the Rage Fist. Even though they're boosting their attacks, Psywaves will still shred. In the back, they have a Shadow Galarian Weezing. Gotta love the spice from the opponent. Here, I just bank the foul play on the Malamar, switch into the Toxapex, and there's now no way for my opponent to win the game. They can spam out Brutal Swing after Brutal Swing in this matchup, but Toxapex just does not care. Toxapex shrugging off this damage and will look to pick up a KO with a Brine after a couple more poison jabs. Brine is fired off here. Brine will be able to deliver the knockout. In comes Annihilate, and this game is over because I now have a move loaded on each Pokemon. So when they shield, I can just combo with the Foul Play from the Malamar, and this is why we banked the move earlier, because Foul Play picks up the KO and gives us the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Malamar versus Shadow Quagsire. Shadow Quagsire, again, pretty happy that it's not on the Toxapex, so overall, happy to see this lead. Foul Play will inflict some serious damage. Quagsire does decide to let that go, and I'm going to no-shield as well. They are going to go for the Aqua Tail, and honestly from here, it looks like that I can one-shield farm down. It's going to be close. I don't play against a lot of Quagsire, but I am going to try for it. So I'm going for the farm down, but the Quagsire survives the Psywave on 1 HP. They're able to force a final shield from me. In comes Drifblim, and this is going to be a very tough game to win. Foul Play is going to be shielded. I do make it to another Foul Play as well, and my guess is we're going to see a double shield. We do. I throw one Psywave, and now I can defer the damage onto Toxapex. Toxapex, I'm very comfortable tanking Shadow Balls in this matchup. Shadow Ball is going to connect, farm it up, and now I'm going to go for the Brine. Brine, not going to do a ton of damage to a Drifblim, but the goal is just to get damage over time onto this Pokemon. Drifblim is going to switch out in the back. It's going to be a Shadow Tentacruel, and that is not what I was expecting to see whatsoever. I'm going to go for the Sludge Wave. When I get to Sludge Wave number 2, I'm going to go for a catch, but my opponent actually throws when I get to the Brine, so maybe I should have switched when I got to the Brine. They will go for the Scald. I now bring in the Shadow Diggersby. I'm looking to catch. I do get the 1-turn bring in, which means I'm unable to catch, which is very unfortunate. Scald is going to connect, but I'm still in a winning position because Drifblim does not have a move banked. So I'm 1 away. I can now win this game. Fire Punch will pick up the KO. Opponent is going to wait the timer. They should be sending back in the Drifblim. They do, but they wait and they catch. A devastating play from my opponent, and that is going to win the game for them unless I can catch back, but I cannot. I don't get the prediction right. I was going to do 4 and switch. They throw after 3. Great plays by my opponent, and that's a well-earned win. Pretty neutral lead in the next match, Malamar versus Talonflame. Definitely don't mind catching Talonflame on the lead. Of course, I'd much prefer it on the Toxapex, but keeping it away from Diggersby is an absolute plus. Foul play is going to be shielded. Opponent is going to look to fire off a Fly. Fly would do a ton of damage to Malamar, so I am going to commit the shield, and I will be able to outpace and make it to the foul play. Foul play should just about pick up the KO here. Foul play gets them low, but not low enough. They survive the Psywave that goes through, and I'm just going to let this go and go for farm on Shadow Diggersby. In comes Shadow Diggersby, getting the quick attack farm down. What do they have in the back for Diggersby? It's going to be a Primeape. I farm up to the Scorching Sand, switch into the Toxapex, and I'm able to catch what should be a close combat onto the Toxapex, and it is. In the back is going to be Pangoro. So my opponent's backline is super strong into the Shadow Diggersby, but super weak into the Toxapex. At this point, this game should basically just be over because I have too much energy already on the Shadow Diggersby. They're spamming out the Night Slashes. They get a Night Slash boost. That is not what I was hoping to see. I will full send the Sludge Wave here in case they try and call it. They will let it go. In comes the Primeape, and Primeape will have to throw. They could potentially go for a Captai there to deny the energy, but if they do, it's still not winning for them. In this instance, I grab the shield with the Brine, and I can quick switch into the Scorching Sands and deliver the KO. Moving into the next match, and we've actually got the same leads as last game, leading into another Talonflame. So the start of this game is going to play out very similarly. It honestly worked out very, very well for me to kind of soft lose the one shield and go for farm on the Shadow Diggersby. My opponent is going to play basically the exact same way that the first opponent did, throwing on 4. I will shield up the Fly, and then look to connect with the Foul Play. Foul play, it won't knock out, but it will get them very low. Foul play gets them to 1 HP, but unfortunately the Psywave does not go through there before they get the move. So now, unfortunately, I actually do lose the entire Malamar. They had a worse IV Talonflame than the previous opponent. In comes Gastrodon, and I am super happy to see Gastrodon here. That would, of course, be game over if it was aligned onto the Toxapex. Scorching Sands is going to land, no 30% chance at a debuff. I can survive an Earth Power, but I am going to respect it because I know it's going to do quite a bit of damage. In the back is going to be Bibarel. You absolutely love to see it. Shadow Scorching Sands would inflict serious damage. They commit the shield. I switch into the Toxapex, and there is the Surf Catch. And now we should be just in a completely commanding position in this game, as Bibarel can go for a Hyper Fang, but a Hyper Fang just does not threaten whatsoever. That Hyper Fang, very comfortable survive for the Toxapex. Toxapex now looking to overfarm as much as possible and go for the Sludge Wave. Since the Shadow Scorching Sands did so much damage to the Gastrodon, Gastrodon's in Poison Jab plus Sludge Wave range, so my opponent is actually forced to throw, as the Sludge Wave would KO from here. So they're forced to go for the Body Slam. That is going to KO, but now I can just bring in Shadow Diggersby. A Fire Punch probably would have KO'd, but this is a new Pokemon for me and a new Pokemon to the game, so I'm going for the Scorching Sands just to guarantee that victory. Malamar versus Corsola. Good lead for me. Of course, I would definitely prefer to see the Corsola in back, as that way I could put the Diggersby on it. I get to fire off the Foul Play. Corsola can tank 1 in this matchup, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Malamar farming up. They farm up to 7, and they're firing off their moves, so they're 2 off the next Nightshade. They're going to switch out into Shadow Marowak. Shadow Marowak, I will fire off a superpower and then look to send in the Shadow Diggersby, because I'm fully expecting that they should have a very good check to Shadow Diggersby in the back, or a regular Diggersby at that, just because Corsola just can't do anything against that Pokemon. So they're going to fire off back-to-back Bone Clubs. I'm very okay taking this damage. I'm expecting they're going to no shield, so I actually throw 2 and the move. It's a bit risky, but if they no shield, the Mud Slap that sneaks won't register. They actually shield. They pivot out into Diggersby. I don't get the Scorching Sands, and suddenly this is not looking great. I farm up to the superpower, but I'm 1 off the back-to-back, and they are now at back-to-back Fire Punches. I don't think I can shield unless I try for a catch. That seems like I'm overcomplicating things, so I will just let it go. and now it's Toxapex versus the world. My opponent is going to fire off energy here, and I have a tough call to make. I let it through. It's going to be the Scorching Sands, and what I didn't realize at the time is my opponent actually Scorching Sands against the Malamar. This is a Purified Diggersby. They don't have Fire Punch. They're on Scorching Sands return. In comes the Marowak. Marowak will be able to grab the final shield. My only hope here is if I massively overfarm and I just can't get enough energy to win this game. They make another Bone Club, and unfortunately for me, if I had thrown on proper timing in the Shadow Diggersby Marowak matchup, I could have made a Scorching Sands versus their Diggersby, and that could have had a pretty big impact on the rest of the game. We move to the next match, and oh my goodness, this opponent out here running Bastiodon plus Grass Core. So they lead Malamar into Bastiodon, or I lead Malamar into Bastiodon, that is. They save switch Jumpluff, their answer with Toxapex, and this game is basically already over. It very well could be something like a Wigglytuff in the back. Bastiodon, Grass plus Wigglytuff is a team that existed in previous seasons, and if that's the case, then I want to bait it back out by hard pivoting into Malamar. So when they bring in the Bastiodon, I'm going to pivot into Malamar, and that is not what I was expecting to see. That's a Shadow Victory Bell. Opponent bringing back some OG Grasshole, and it's just getting absolutely buried by Malamar. Malamar just completely invalidates that entire team as they're just getting cooked. Down goes the Victory Bell. Bastiodon is going to get a farm down just to be met with our good friend Shadow Diggersby. And at this point, my opponent realizes there's just no way to win this game, so they just don't throw any charge moves for the remainder of the match. They are just more than happy to let the Bastiodon get KO'd, and we actually get an attack debuff as well to add a little insult to injury from our good friend Shadow Diggersby. Shadow Diggersby picks up the KO, and we take the 2 shield flex as well. And now some final thoughts on Shadow Diggersby. I do think the extra damage you get from being Shadow is honestly very nice. I know there are certain matchups that do actually flip as a result of being Shadow, like for example, I believe it's the 1 shield versus Shadow for Alligator, the 2 shield versus Jumpluff, so there are some matchup wins. However, in the 0 shield, the regular does tend to perform better. So I think, as a bit of final analysis, I think it ends up being a side grade at best. You can still run the regular Diggersby, have a ton of success. You can opt to run the Shadow Diggersby. You'll probably have quite a bit of success as well. It's just going to be about whichever one you choose, learn the matchups. So if you're the regular Diggersby, you know you're going to be stronger when shields are down, and if you're the Shadow, you know you can do some pretty interesting things like beating Jumpluff in the 2s. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.